On WFLA Now, feel good and live your best life with Bloom Health Club. Here's Gail Guayardo.
All right, this is going to be a good one, everyone. We are talking all things sex with top Tampa sex therapist, Dr. Gina Midyett. Dr. Gina, welcome to Bloom Health Club. We're so excited to have you as an official member.
Hello, I am so excited to be here. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And our digital reporter and producer of Bloom Tampa Bay, Brody Waddell, is going to be jumping in with some questions as well. But, you know, this whole thing is let's talk sex, everything you wanted to know, but were afraid to ask. And I think in a lot of instances, sex is taboo for people and they're not living their fullest potential sexually because they're afraid.
That's right. You know, I think inhibition is the huge thing. You know, nobody really wants to talk about it. They just become really uptight about sex, and everybody wants it deep down inside, just they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, and you know, it's crazy. Like you'll listen to podcasts and radio and all these different things, and you'd be surprised how many people live in these loveless, sexless relationships. They're like, I haven't had sex with my wife in 3 years. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
What?
I hear it all the time.
You do?
Years and years. And they come to my office because they don't know what else to do. And there is no way you can have a good relationship if you haven't had sex in years. It's impossible. And I'll even assign them things like, okay, well, just go do this exercise or do that. They'll come back the next week. Oh, we just didn't do it. We ended up doing something. We were busy. And I think you just become so addicted to living like that. So addicted to just being busy is what it is, that you don't make time for your relationship. You don't make time for sex. And I'll tell you, when you don't have a lot of sex and you've gone years, you become an uptight person.
Yeah.
Right?
The stereotype is true.
It's so
Like, you just need to
true.
get laid, man.
Yeah.
No, that whole saying you need to get laid is
Yeah.
very true,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to it scientifically. I
Yes.
mean, you know, telling somebody you need to get laid is just like saying, hey, there's ways to get endorphins
Yeah.
going in your body. I
Yes.
mean, you're going to feel better. You're going to look better. There is a glow about you if you have a good sex life.
And your confidence too, you know, I mean, I tell people all the time, like confidence starts from within. It does. But somebody telling you you're beautiful and touching you and making you feel sexy, that does make your confidence go up.
Yeah, it does. It really, really does. So let's talk about it, because I know one of the main questions you get from a lot of people is that, is my sexual desire normal? And, you know, people are always Googling how many times a year does the average married person have sex? What is normal?
Yeah, so that's a funny question, because I had a guy the other day where a girl told him, oh, I can't be with you anymore because you only want to have sex once every other day, and I need more than that. So he was really upset. He said, is there something wrong with me? He started Googling things. I said, honestly, there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's really about what works for you and what works for you and your partner together. So I don't think there's such thing as normal. Now, abnormal would be years and years and months, but I would say the average, okay? I would say once or twice a week is the average right now.
Okay.
And that's
Okay.
for heterosexual couples or everybody?
That's for everybody, you know, in a committed relationship. Now, I would say single people that are just out and about doing it, that can be a little higher. But if you're in a committed relationship for years and years, I would say once or twice a week is the average right now, you know.
Brody, I want you to jump in, because I'm going to come in with my perspective or questions for Dr. Gina when it comes with like a long-term 20-year relationship, because I think there are a lot of married couples out there looking to spice it up, change it up, get out of the routine. But coming from someone's perspective in their 20s, pushing 30, what are your thoughts, Brody? I just wanted to
I
ask
think
him this
there's like
question. I've just been waiting for this.
Been waiting for the
episode.
moment.
what
Come on,
specifically do
spill
you
it,
wanna
Brody.
know? To me, it's interesting, like the sort of the differences that you can see in people. And I mean, like, given I only have sex with girls, so I speak from that experience. But it's like you said, there's been variations even in my relationships on the frequency. Like there was like some where it was like, yes, it was like every day or every other day. It wasn't even something we had to talk about or discuss. And I've had other relationships where I had to be like, hey, it's been like 2-3 weeks. Like, what's going on here? Like, can we talk about this? And we talked about this on the show downstairs. Some people can't even talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you broach a situation where you can't even speak about it, and they don't even know what's going on? Like the answer, like, will be like, oh, sometimes I'm just not in the mood. And it's like, okay, well, what
Yeah.
changed?
Right.
Right.
And so there could be a couple of things there. I think either something changed with the relationship. Maybe you guys just weren't compatible, and that's good to know in the beginning, so you can move on to the next person. Or maybe that person's stress level went up. Maybe they had changes in their life that you don't know about, But I would say, especially if you're dating, you should know right away if you're compatible with someone in your sex life, because some people really are just more sexual than others. I mean, that's the truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, as you go on with your relationship, and my adult friends that have been married for long periods of time, myself, like in the beginning of a relationship 20 years ago, and even for years and years into it, I mean, the sex is a lot. And it's like, even with kids, people are like, how do you have 4 kids? Well, that's how you have 4 kids, And so, but I think as time marches on, things can start to get a little bit stale. So how do you help couples that they still love each other, the fire's there, but it's not like the golden years?
Of course, always in the beginning, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun. You're going to want to have tons of sex because you're getting to know each other. It's like a novelty, right? It's exciting. It's new. So of course, as time goes on, it's going to get a little bit more boring, a little stale. So you just have to make time for it. You need to make it exciting again. So especially you start having kids, you start having responsibilities, life gets hard, making that time and making it. So I'll give you an example. So I had this one couple, and the guy's like, yeah, I get home from work and she doesn't want to have sex. She says she's too tired. I said, well, have you asked her why she's tired? Well, okay, let me ask her why she's tired. So she told him, well, it's because I'm with my kids all day. I've been cleaning. I've been working. I'm exhausted. I don't want to have sex. It's like a chore to me. I said, well, what you need to do is you have to figure out her love language. Maybe you need to come home and say, hey, I'll put the kids to bed, or I'll make dinner. Let me bring some dinner home for you. Let me set up a bubble bath while I give the kids a bath, so that she's in a better state of mind. So it's really that. It's like communicating with your partner, finding out, well, why has sex gotten boring and why do we not want to do it? And let's make life a little bit easier so it can be more of a fun thing instead of a chore.
I know you talk a lot too. You said this even on Bloom, our syndicated show broadcast here in Tampa, Florida, like role playing and things like that, or dress up stuff. I don't know. Like I think about that. I'm like, that sounds really good on paper, but how am I going to execute that? Like what you talked about, some homework assignments that you send couples with. What are they? Like, what can you do? I haven't broken out the French maid outfit yet, just like Dr. Gina, but that does kind of sound intriguing.
Yeah. So a couple homework assignments that I give.
Right.
The number one, especially if you haven't had sex for a long time, is called the intimacy assignment. So this just means both of you are going to lay down in bed naked and you're just going to explore each other's bodies with no pressure of intercourse. Because the reason that a lot of people, like especially men, have some performance anxiety is because there was that pressure to perform. So I said, okay, this exercise is just intimacy. It's just touching each other, exploration. So that's one exercise I do. The second one is toys. So I say, if you don't have any, go online, order some if you're embarrassed. Or I think it's fun just to go to a store together. There's a lot of stores here in Tampa too. They're not gross. You know what I mean? No, they're just more.
I mean, I would have to go in with like a mustache and like a fake nose and eyebrows.
Yeah, there's definitely some gnarly ones. For sure.
There's some gnarly ones too.
For sure.
There are
Gathering
some
places.
weird ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Lord,
We'll have to put a list up online of the safe ones.
Yeah,
to
you wanna go
venture
test them all out?
into.
Yeah, maybe you should do like an
Assignment.
undercover. And just,
Yeah.
Brody, that's your assignment.
That's on overtime for sure.
Okay.
That's
oh, and the role playing,
yeah,
role
role-playing,
one.
role-playing.
Yeah, so role playing, same thing. It's like explore. A fun one is to go to a hotel. This is so silly, but I think it's kind of fun. Go to a hotel and then like the guy sitting at your husband sitting at the bar, and then you come in and you're wearing like a different color hair, and then you give yourself a different
strangers
name.
meeting.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
I've
be a
heard that.
Have
stranger.
you done that? Brody's
Yeah.
acting like this is very
no, I
familiar.
haven't done that, but I've
Lies.
seen something like that.
Lies.
He's
Brody
right.
said it.
I mean, I like role play to a degree, so I can completely understand that. Like,
Yeah.
some people are more open to it than others. Like, I've been into like asking that of a partner, and she'll be like, "That's weird. Like, why are you into that?"
Right.
Like, sort of thing. And then like other that were just like thrilled about it. But it does add like a certain uniqueness. Like I've talked to friends who were like, "That's nothing about that," but I'm like, what's great is that it's different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just a little bit enough different where it's like, this is way more stimulating now.
Oh yeah. No, it could be kind of exciting. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, like, and Brody, you just touched on this, like, if you want to break out this new repertoire, you might want to talk to your significant other. Like, I'd have to run this one past my husband, Mark, because he might think I was a total weirdo if I walked in the lobby as a blonde.
Yeah. Right.
Let him know.
You're like, do I need to call
Hey,
someone?
it's me.
I know.
But in all honesty, like, you should probably plan this out.
Yes.
Or, right.
Yeah, you should talk about it first, not surprise them, because then they might ruin it. You'll come up to me like, what? That looks so dumb. And then,
Yeah, you don't
great.
you don't wear blonde well. Okay, I think I figured that out on TV. But anyways, all right. What are some other assignments that you give to people when they come to you? I mean, have you had situations where people come to you just so broken in their relationships and they are able to find that spark again?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, too. So you can come to me and tell me you have sex problems, but I guarantee there is an underlying issue going on here. It's not just, I don't want to have sex. There's something going on. And the number one is trust. So a lot of times with couples that are having sex problems is because one of them is having some sort of resentment towards the other one. You know, there was either trust was broken or, I don't know, they caught them looking at something and now they're resentful, or they were just having other issues in their relationship. So I would say the first step is to really figure out, why are you guys not connecting intimately? You know, because especially for years and years of non-sex, that's a deeper issue than just, I don't want to have sex with my husband or wife.
Let's talk about this gets a lot of buzz, but pornography. You know, we just had a registered nurse, and she has this whole TikTok channel. I can say it on here. I could not say it on Bloom downstairs, but it's called Dick Talk. And a lot of what she talks about is, you know, issues that men have with intimacy, and actually they have problems with, you know, even being sexual because they're just so inundated with porn.
Yes, yes. Pornography can actually be a really bad thing, you know? There's a way to use it that can be healthy, but the problem with pornography is unrealistic expectations. Also, it desensitizes you into really being intimate with a real person. So you have to be very careful with pornography. The only times that I have ever told people to use pornography are couples that have been sexless for many, many years. And I've told them, you know, you can watch some porn together. I mean, I feel like that's okay. It's everything in moderation, I feel, is okay.
Right.
It's when it's extreme, it's not okay. So if your husband is watching porn every night and you guys aren't having good sex, there's a problem there.
Okay. And then and if you're not having good sex, is that just another indicator that your husband and or wife is stepping out on you?
Well, I've seen cases of that, or it could be that they're just watching certain types of porn that you're not going to live up to. I had this couple who the husband was really into trans porn, and obviously his wife is not going to be able to stimulate that for him because she's not a transgendered individual. Or I've had men that want to watch gay porn, and they watch so much gay porn that they can't be intimate with their wives because they're not doing it for them anymore. You know, so that's definitely something to be aware of.
All right. The next very uncomfortable subject, but I'm going to bring it up anyways because this is the platform to do it. And this is part of people's sexual health. You get a lot of questions about people with fetishes.
Oh, yeah. That's
do?
a big one. Yeah,
It's
people have
big?
a lot of secret fetishes.
They do?
Yes, yes.
Like?
Would you like me to share some?
Sure. What about you, Brody? Are
Okay.
you ready for this? You
Sure,
better bring it up on a
absolutely.
triple box
I
in
live
case I
for
need
it.
your support on this.
So I would say the top 2 craziest fetishes that I've ever have experienced was number 1, somebody that would buy dirty socks from homeless people at the gas stations, and he would have a private storage unit where he'd keep all these socks. And he'd leave his family and go to the storage unit and just smell the socks and get so turned on by them.
That's weird.
Yes.
I mean, I shouldn't be judgy.
I
I don't want to be.
wow.
I don't want to be the
Well,
judgmental host of
There's
this.
some extreme trauma
podcast.
behind that.
There was a lot of trauma behind that
Okay.
one. So then the next one, this was probably worse than that one, was there was this man who he would take lunch breaks with 2 female coworkers. They'd go to the hotel across the street, and they would have a threesome together, but they would smear each other with their own poop.
That doesn't even sound healthy.
No,
Gnarly.
and that was my thing. I'm like, listen, Everyone, that's up to you, whatever you like. But to me, that's unhealthy and it's unsanitary and very unsafe.
And can these weird fetishes be a sign, like Brody, you just touched on it, but that you're dealing with some major trauma that has
Yes.
been unresolved? Because that's something else that I know that you help people with. Because Dr. Gina, does couple therapy. She's sex therapist, but you're a therapist in general, and meet with clients one-on-one. And sometimes these could be major red flags that someone has not dealt with trauma.
Absolutely. Like in that case, that person had childhood trauma. He had childhood abuse. What happened to him with the abuse, he also became a narcissist. So he would solicit these women and really learn how to manipulate them and control their minds and have them do these crazy fetishes. But he was dealing with his own trauma from childhood abuse. And we had to work on that. I mean, that took I actually saw him for many years to work on that.
And now we were just talking about extreme cases just now, but let's go into something that I think is not discussed a lot because it is so taboo, and people just don't want to discuss it. They don't know how to discuss it. They don't know who to turn to. But I think, and you would probably know the statistics way better than I do, Dr. Gina, but sexual trauma is way more common than people might imagine.
Very much. And we're just thinking of, when we think of sexual trauma, we think of women. For some reason, everyone's mind goes to that. And I know that because I talk to so many people, and when I say sexual trauma, oh yeah, I know a woman. It's high in men. There's a lot.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. There's so much sexual trauma and childhood abuse in men that we do not discuss. And maybe it's because women, we're a little more emotional, and we've been allowed to speak our minds a little bit easier as little girls. It's not a big deal to talk about our feelings, right? For men, and you can obviously tell me if I'm right with this, but it's harder for men to express themselves because as little boys, you're told, boys don't cry, you be strong. So a lot of men hold this in forever to the end of their lives, and they never deal with their sexual trauma. So yeah, sexual abuse, I can't give you the exact number, but I would say it is very high.
That's prevalent.
Very prevalent.
It's really, really prevalent.
Yes.
How would you know as a person? I mean, obviously, if you've had sexual trauma or trauma in your life, you should deal with it. You should talk to a professional. I mean, we're talking all things sex today, but just trauma in general can paralyze you on so many levels. So it's important to get it out there. But what are some telltale signs that it's really starting to impact your relationships?
Well, here's the thing too, with sexual trauma, a huge defense mechanism is memory loss. So you don't even know it. Sometimes you don't even know what happened, but you start noticing. This is a good way to start getting to know yourself and start becoming more emotionally intelligent, is if you notice that you're very adverse to sex, or you're uncomfortable when you're being touched, or those little signs like that, you need to start digging deep, because there's something that's there. And again, with trauma, you get that selective memory and you block things. That's how our bodies protect ourselves. Our minds make us forget so that we don't have to hurt and feel pain. So I think by exhibiting these behaviors, you really get to know yourself. And then by going to therapy, you start talking about it and it starts coming out and you start disclosing it. And a lot of people think, oh gosh, but if I talk about it, I'm going to get worse. I'm going to think about it. It's going to re-traumatize me. It's the opposite, because your subconscious mind is holding that in. You're living your life with that memory still. You're just not consciously thinking about it. Now, if you consciously think about it and bring it out to the open, now you can work on it. Now you can challenge it. Now you can empower yourself to make your life better.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And just when it comes to mental health care and working with professionals like yourself, and I have figured this out, and I'm not talking about sexual trauma, but there were certain things that were holding me back in adult life, or things that I would have. And then once you trace it back to its origin and where it comes from, and what you may or may not even have labeled trauma, because a lot of times you think, well, gosh, I shouldn't label that trauma. Trauma is something that is a rape or something that happened major to somebody, or they were beaten, or this. My trauma is not really trauma, but really, there's not a one size fits all trauma.
Absolutely. It could be something that you saw your dad cheat on your mom. It could be Your parents were very unloving. So you received this message of, well, I don't want people to get close to me because they're going to abandon me or they're going to hurt me. I mean, that can be trauma, just that. It's the messages that you're receiving from your childhood.
Yeah. And so these are things that are important to talk about because they're not as scary as it seems. And once you come to some kind of resolution with that, you can, in fact, move on. And then would you say that this is, and we talked about this too on Bloom, the TV show, sexual shame can start at a young age. Like Dr. Gina, you and I were both raised in, Catholic church. I went to Catholic school. I had the nuns.
Me too.
That you could only see their eyes, and they had switches and all the things. And I can't tell you the number of times I was told that sex is bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. Bad, 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 bad. And that gets part of your wiring as well.
I actually have a memory when I was a little girl, and one of the nuns, I always had naturally red lips when I was little. That left when I got older, but I just was blessed with like little natural red lips, right? And I'll never forget, she would make me kiss her hand to prove to her that I wasn't wearing lipstick, because girls don't wear lipsticks because that's sexualizing yourself and you shouldn't look like that. So even that little message right there, I grew up having that shame of every time I'd want to dress up or look nice, that, oh, wow, maybe I shouldn't wear too much makeup, or I shouldn't do this. Right. So
like even jewelry you weren't allowed to wear. Like there were so many restrictions that,
crazy.
You grew up either in fear, and sometimes that fear would stick, or you would grow up and you would be almost rebellious.
Yeah. Basically, the message was, you're a bad girl or you're a bad boy. So, as you grow up and you become an adult, you might not be thinking, oh, I'm a bad girl, but that message is there when you're doing something like, oh, I'm a bad person. There's something wrong with me, so then you're living your life that way.
Yeah, you guys actually worked together, Brody and Dr. Gina did, on an article that addressed this very same subject. And what did you guys come up with when it came, as far as the healing from this or getting past this?
Communication, right? Communication. It's about finding that right person, like like you said, like finding a partner that you can really process through that with.
And you made a good point, partner, right? It doesn't have to be a therapist. I mean, if you can find oh my God, that's like a beautiful thing. If you can find a partner that can create that safe place for you to talk about these things and they don't shame you about it, that's healing right there.
It is. It is. And I would have to say, I always like to throw my husband props all the time. He was, we've been married or together over 2 decades now. And he was that man for me that, there's normalcy. There's not, doesn't have to be all this uptightness. And that really helps when you have a place of trust. And I think that that's a big thing. You talked about it before, but trust is really important in a relationship.
And no pressure either. I think your partner, if you're dealing with something like that, your partner needs to be very patient with you. Say, you know what, let's take it slow. I'm here for you. I mean, we're going to be together for a long time. We don't need to fix this tomorrow. So what do you need from me? Yeah. That's really the question. What do you need from me? How can I be there for you?
Right.
Another big one is, you just talked about that now, is the communication with your partner. And that comes with, like you were saying earlier, like, are we having enough sex, or it's not working for me? People might be listening or watching right now and say, well, I want to have these conversations, but I don't want to piss off my husband or my wife or my partner or whatever. So how do you have constructive communication when it comes to sex? Because you could see how it might hurt someone's feelings.
Backfire.
Oh, yeah.
Or backfire.
Why are we having sex? Well, okay.
Yeah.
Now it's worse.
Right.
Right. Yeah, because you can also become like the nagging person. Like, why are we having sex? Why are we having sex? And back to the first thing I said was, sex is in the mind. So if you're annoying your partner about it, they're not going to want to have sex with you. So I think the real question and the way to communicate is just use those I messages. Like, don't attack. Don't be like, you're not having enough sex with me. You need to do this. It's more like, hey, I've noticed that we're not having enough sex lately, or I've noticed that you don't really have desire that much lately. What is it that's happening, or what can I do to help you with that? Or I'm feeling a little neglected. It'd be great if we tried this, or just be very sensitive with the way you come at somebody, so they don't feel, because they might be dealing with their own issues of shame and guilt, and now they're not going to be vulnerable to talk to you. Now you're not creating that safe space.
Right.
Now, I know couples therapy is extremely helpful, but maybe there's a couple out there where the wife wants to go to therapy and the husband doesn't feel it's necessary, or vice versa. So, is it at all helpful just to go as an individual and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with and I can't make it change?
Absolutely. I see a lot of individuals like that because their husband or wives don't want to come in. But the good thing about that is that I can help that person communicate their needs to their partner and or bring these exercises home. So in a lot of cases, that's actually helped because you're right. It's hard sometimes to bring that other person to therapy because they might not believe in therapy or they have their own issues with that. But you can definitely come in as an individual and get help and then bring it home.
All right.
Right. Speaking of therapy and stuff like that, I wonder, do you work with like sex workers and stuff like that often? Have you
Like
dealt
surrogates?
No, I mean like especially now, like I guess where I'm trying to get to is like with the rise of like OF, and like obviously we have a lot of gentlemen's clubs here in Florida and stuff like that. Like what effect? It's so normalized now. I know dozens of girls that do that. Like how is that affecting the psyche?
And can I jump in and ask, OF is?
It's OnlyFans. So
Oh,
it's-
yeah.
Oh,
it's
OnlyFans.
it's like
I
a
knew
proxy-
OnlyFans. I didn't know the
Yeah.
abbreviation.
it's
Sorry.
I just learned the abbreviation the other
Right.
day, actually,
Okay,
so don't feel
that
bad.
makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, and so the reason I ask is because I know so many of these girls. I talk to them, like I know them well. They almost 100% of them have some sort of trauma,
Yeah.
something going on, and dancers too. I know quite a few of them. And also almost 100% of them identify as bisexual as well. And I'm at a point where I'm going, this cannot be a coincidence.
Yeah.
What is the long term effects of it? Like, is it attracting these certain types of people? Like, I would love to hear you.
This is a
like,
great
speak on that.
question because my clientele now has become I have a lot of OnlyFans girls,
Yes.
Really?
strippers and porn stars.
Yes, and they struggle with it a lot, and that's what
Yes.
I've talked to them about. Where you're like, your whole job is like sexual, and then they were some of the ones the least comfortable talking about the stuff, or like they have like hang-ups about it, and I'm like fascinated by it.
Yeah. Well, because they have numbed their trauma and their pain by doing their services, either they're hookers, so they're doing those types of services, dancers doing those, or OnlyFans doing it on video, and they're so we're becoming histrionic personality. Let me explain what that is. Okay, so there's narcissism, which is obviously we all know what narcissists are, where you're self-indulging yourself. Well, histrionic personality is very similar, but it's become so prevalent in the young women of today because of social media. If you go to a bar or a club, everyone's in their own little bubble of a world of Instagram and TikTok, and they're filtering themselves where they don't even know how to connect with real people. So back to your theme with sex workers or strippers, OnlyFans girls, they're in their own world. So when they're in a real relationship, they're so desensitized. They don't even want to be in a real relationship because they're never going to get that type of attention and that type of just exposure from one person because that's not normal. One guy is not going to be able to give you 12,000 likes or pay you every time you dance for them,
or the income level,
or the
I've
income.
noticed that too. What's crazy?
I want to ask: is the income level? I mean, I know in certain instances, like let's just take it out of the sex realm and into like just being an influencer. Some influencers make a lot of money and they know how to kill it.
Yes.
But I think there are a lot of OFs out there and they all kill it.
Yes.
No, the top 1% I think is $1,000 a month.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's not that
If
much.
you're over that, then you're already, or it might be like the 3% or something.
So you're making $1,000 a month.
Puts you in like the top percentage only.
So
Wow.
But there's so many of them. It's so saturated. Like, and the people that are successful are like, but it's like a legitimate career option now. It's so
It is.
regulated now. I've met so many people doing it. It like blows my mind.
But I think
and they struggle
addicted.
with relationships too. They'll ask me
Yes.
like, "What do I need to do?" I'm like, "Well, sweet, I'm telling you." And what's crazy is they're some of the most stuck into gender roles women.
Yes.
They are sacrificing everything to get their bag or whatever, but they want. Most of them are like, I want to be a housewife.
I know.
I don't want to do this now. I'm like, well, you are doing the complete opposite thing that
would
will
attract
get
a
you that.
guy to be a
That's what I
housewife.
tell them
And
all
not
the
only-
time.
Yeah, not only that, but you are going to make this income level, and now you need a guy who can take you. Oh, you have to save me from that, and it's like so. It's
I
like
know.
They make $1,000 a month.
well, some of them more, some of them less. You know what I mean? But then they have to deal with men being their worst selves. You know what I mean? Like my stripper friends say, "Oh, men suck in this." Now I'm like, you are in an environment where they're at their worst. They're drunk. They're like the people that come in all the time. They're missing something in their regular life. You can't judge regular men by that. And just in my own personal experience, this is why I wanted to talk to you about this. Those girls, when they do meet a decent man, do not know what to do. They freak out,
don't.
and they are so outwardly beautiful, a lot of them.
They are.
And they end up with the biggest bums, getting abused. Or
Really?
they
Yes.
date women now. They hate like or
Yeah.
bisexual, and that's why I wanted to say like what is-
Bisexual, but
yes,
that's because they're being manipulated that this is what they have to do.
yes,
You
Or
know,
they're
and
just so turned on. Yes,
yeah,
so,
You know,
it's sad.
I worked with a photographer for many, many years at Channel 8, and he left the industry a long time ago, but he did a project for college that I thought was really fascinating. And this is going to date, you know, you're going to be like, Brody's not even going to know this was the thing. But there were like peep shows back in the day where it
Yeah.
was not, there was no, you know, this whole virtual world that we live in, but men would go in and they would be on one side of the glass and the women performer would be on the other. And as part of this photography assignment, he focused on the men more that were watching more so than even the women. And he said the looking at the men at that from that angle was like it really put them in almost a pathetic state. It is like you look at them and like, oh, that's really what your life has resorted to. Like this is what you're going to do. This is what's going to bring you sexual pleasure. So do you think it could also be that for some of these women, you know, they want to stay above, you know, the guy or put the guy in a role where they're depending on, you know, the female. Like it could be a psychology
I see exactly
issue.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
So
I always wondered about that.
Yes, because I get a lot of these wealthy men that come see me and they're like, I want a relationship, but then they're going after these young girls like Brody was talking about that are, you know, stripping or OnlyFans girls. And then they're, oh, but they're not, you know, giving me what I want. But here's what's happening. There is a power thing here. So the way the women and the men have told me is that, well, I'm getting what I want and I'm getting what I want. So the woman's like, okay, well, I have him in a position where he's going to buy me purses and give me money. And the guy said, well, I'm going to get a young girl that I'm going to have sex with. So it's like this whole psychology
It's like a
thing.
power play on
It's a
both
whole
sides.
power play on both sides. It is. But at the end of the day, no one's happy. I mean, they're all like happy, instant gratification happy, but they're lonely. Everyone's
Yes.
lonely.
because you're just trading off a lot
Yeah.
of what you really need.
Yes.
Like obviously, a guy that's got that much money, you sacrifice a lot of other things
yes.
in order to get to that level.
It's
And
what
so
you
the women aren't
value.
happy, and then for a girl to be completely so on her looks, there's going to be a lot of other aspects missing too. And they
Right.
realize, so when they come together, they're like, oh, this is like what I thought I wanted, and it's not there. Like, yeah,
No.
all those fascinate me too because I'm still in the dating market. You ladies are not. Like, it
Yeah.
is. It's very different now.
It's
like
so different.
there was like this whole thing where it was all about like being independent and feminism sort of thing, and that has evolved now to the total opposite, where all these girls want to be taken care of, and they're like, I just want to be hot and have fun, and you everything. And it's been like so crazy to me to learn that because I was raised honestly to think that like, oh, these girls got it together, they're gonna do it all, they're gonna have this and that, and then we can compliment each other. And then my lived experience has been like, okay, you're the man, you have to do everything.
Is that a new trend?
Oh, it is. I
Yeah.
mean, my hope is that we can start empowering girls to not feel this way anymore because it is. I mean, I feel like
I
there
feel
was-
like that takes us back
Crazy.
in time.
It does, but they're that's what they want.
That's what they want.
Wild.
Yeah. I feel like for a while, women were very empowered, like, oh, we're going to be career women and everybody. And then it started going backwards because of OnlyFans, even Instagram, I feel I think it started with that because
Yeah,
it was
I
so
do too.
easy to post some, you know, bikini photos and get tons of attention. And it was,
And pick
wow,
the
I
best
like
one.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what's happening is that women, they want to be empowered and they're all, yeah, we're, you know, feminists and we want to be strong, independent women, but you don't.
No.
Because you're allowing men to buy you basically and degrade you and put you in this category of, you know, you're beneath me and sexualize you and objectify you.
Right. And
Yeah.
to a degree, you have to feel like everyone wants to feel like they're going up. You know, like so I
Yeah.
understand that. Like you want to feel like you're doing a little bit better than you should
Right.
be able to do, but they're like it's like being pushed to an extreme level.
Yeah, I mean, look, I say this all the time. They make jokes behind my back in the control room. They probably do shots every time I mention I have 4 daughters on this show. But I do have 4 daughters. And for me, teaching them independence and working and all the things and being able to stand on their own 2 feet is important because as soon as you're letting a guy take total reins, you've taken us back to the 1950s and you really start to lose control of your life, because it all comes with a price tag.
It all comes with a price tag. Nothing in life is free.
Exactly.
Nothing.
No.
I mean, yes, of course, you're going to find the occasional relationship where the husband's this incredible
Yeah.
provider and they have this incredible marriage, and that it does exist. But a lot of times, you find it as,
But
yeah,
have something though, even if your husband does have all the money and is working. I mean, that's fine. I know I have a lot
Right.
of friends that are housewives. So that's
Right.
fine. But have something that gives you some kind of purpose,
Right.
whether it's charity work or, volunteering at your kid's school, just something.
Hobbies.
Right.
anything.
Hobbies.
Yeah, so many people don't.
Right.
They just
Well, I know the three of us could go on and on and
Yes,
on
we
with this subject, but this has been, a big highlight to have you, Dr. Gina Midyett, on the Bloom Health Club. How do folks get a hold of you?
You can go to my Instagram at Dr. Gina Love, or my website as well, which is lifefocustampa.com.
And you have a podcast. Tell us
I
about
do.
that.
So I have a podcast called Mental Intimacy that I record every week. You can find it on iTunes. You can find it on Spotify. But this is all I talk about is mental health, sex, all this great stuff.
All right. Well, Dr. Gina, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you for having me.
all right. Thank you. Until next time.